Welcome to my overdue Magicka Nightblade build. It's for the Dragonbones DLC. So, let's start off. This is a Dark Elf Nightblade. Reason for this is Dark Elf have some nice race passives for the way this build is going to be working. We've got increase to max Magicka and max stamina, increase to max Magicka and flame resistance, and increase to flame damage, and increase to shock and frost damage as well. That's all strong passives for what we're going to be using. So, let's go over to the gear. Alright, so we are using 5-piece Burning Spellweave. Why Burning Spellweave? Because I don't like mechanical acuity very much. And out of every test I've done, this is the one that's always proven strongest for my personal playstyle. All pieces are divines, all max Magicka enchant. Our 2-piece is Zan. Not everyone is a fan of this set. It's a melee DPS range kind of set, so it's not ideal for some trials. But I'm lucky enough to pretty much be able to play where and how I want, for the most part. So I use Zan, because it's overpowered like hell. It adds 1-piece spell crit and the flame beam of death, which is crazy overpowered. And if you are allowed to play in melee, I highly suggest you use this. But if you can't play in melee, just use Valken, it's pretty good. It's not as good, but it'll get the job done. And then we use 4-piece Moondancer, all with max spell damage enchants, and a Moondancer Inferno infused with a shock enchant on it. And then our back bar is a Maelstrom Inferno with Nirnhound. We're a dual Inferno staff build because I simply don't like lightning staves very much. And the whole purpose of this build is to get Burning Spellweave to go off as much as possible, so we need to be doing as much fire damage as possible. So, gear swap outs, like I said, with this you can do Valken. If you don't like Burning Spellweave or don't have it, you can go and use Julianos or Mechanical Acuity, both of which are crafted and very easy to get. If you do want to go off and get Burning Spellweave to try this build, it's farmable in City of Ash 1 and 2. If you don't have access to Moondancer and weapon, you can pick up Infallible Aether, which is the easier to acquire set, which is from Aetherian Archive and the other Craglorn Trials, I think. No, it might just be from AA. Our back bar, Maelstrom Inferno, drops from Maelstrom Arena. Duh. It's got clues in the name, isn't it? This one's Nirnhound with a weapon and spell damage glyph on it. And this will make our Crushing Wall buff our lighter and heavy attacks, which is another part of this build, which you'll see quite soon. Skills. On our front bar, we use Crippling Grasp, which is a strong decent dot. It's Merciless Resolve, which is a self buff, gives us minor berserk, and when we hit something with 5 light attacks, or it might just be using 5 light attacks, it will give you Spectral Bow proc, which will then go off and hit like a truck on whatever you shoot at. Swallow Soul is our cheap and spammable. It heals you, deals a decent amount of damage, but it's a pain in the ass to learn to use if you're used to Force Pulse. Impale is our execute. Use this when targets are below 25% health. Basically, you start using this instead of Swallow Soul when mobs are low health. And then we've got Inner Light, which is our spell critical buff and gives us a bit of max Magicka. Then we have got Fiery Rage Destro ult on the front bar, and that's simply to give us the Destruction Staff Ancient Knowledge passive, which is just here. Gives us an extra 8% single target damage with Flame Staffs on. On our back bar, our first slot is normally our flex slot. You can put, if you are in an optimized group without Drain, you can put Drain here, like I do most of the time. You can use Shield, so things like Harness Magicka or other bits like that can go there. Then we've got Siphoning Attacks, which is basic for our sustain. It gives us some healing and some Magicka return. Twisting Path, decent ground dart. Blockade of Fire makes burning enemies take more damage from this, so it's really strong. We've got Inner Light again, and then Soul Harvest, which is what I mostly use. So in the start of a fight, I'll drop down Fiery Rage, and then I'll use Soul Harvest from there on out in most fights. Which this basically gives you 20% stronger damage against one target for the 6 seconds. Right, if there's time later, I'll go through the rotation with this build. But let's move on to CP in the meantime. In the blue tree, with Elfborn, we have 56. This will increase our Magicka damage crits. It'll be by 20%. Elemental Expert is 12% extra to our Flame Shock, Frost and Magic stuff, with 56 points in it. Spell Erosion, 36, it's more spell penetration, pretty simple. Staff Expert, now this is part of the build that I've referred to countless times. It'll come up later. Then we've got Master at Arms, which is direct damage, so Swallow Soul, Spectral Bow, Impale. Quite a lot of the damage of this build is buffed by this. And 31 Thaumaturge just to give our dots a bit of an extra kick. We don't use Exploiter, we don't need this shit, especially not since it's been nerfed. Ironclad, 61, Spell Shield 19, Light Armor 10, Thick Skinned 23, Hardy 49, Elemental Defender 49, Expert Defender and Quick Recovery 14 and 15. Red Tree, you pretty much do what you like with. If you have your own personal setup that you like, stick with it. Or change it depending on what trial or dungeon you're doing. If there's a lot of magic damage, buff up your magic defenses, etc. Similar stick with the green tree, kind of have it suited to how you like it. I've got 20 in Warlord, 9 in Sprinter, for some break free cost reduction and some sprinting cost reduction, which is sometimes useful and helps preserve our stamina a bit as a Magicka character. 76 in Arcanist, 76 in Tenacity, helps us with our sustain. And then some more points to help our stamina pool in dungeons or trials that need us to be moving a lot. Right, that's the CP. Now, the reason I have this build set just as I do is I've played this build, or various variations of it, for the past year or so. And this is the one I'm happy with most. Now, the logic behind this build is it's a light attack, DPS based build. So, our light attacks, as you see here, do a fair percentage of the damage of the actual full output. So they're doing 10,000 DPS, which is over double what every other skill is capable of doing. Sure, it's the way the rotation works as well, but it is what this build is built to do. It's very reliable and strong. It's very good for things like DSA, and very strong in Maelstrom. It's basically been built around playing solo or in small unoptimized groups. But that's not to say that it won't be good in optimized groups, because it's very, very easy to change around. Like I said earlier, Zan can be switched out for Falcon Scoria, which can give you the option to stay ranged. Burning Spell Weave, if you don't have the ability to keep fire damage on the target enough, this can be switched out to any other set, which gives you a decent amount of damage, so Mechanical Acuity or Julianos. And of course the Mundus, we use the Lover because, like I say, we run without the most try-hard groups, so we do need this. But if you do run with groups with a good organisation, this can easily be swapped for the Apprentice, gives you a ton more spell damage, and you don't have to worry about your spell penetration quite as much. But yeah, this build is really, really easy to customise and change around to what you need it to be able to do, and it's why it's one of my favourite builds, and it's incredibly strong, and it's really, really fun to play. Now, I will try to explain the rotation really quickly before I end the video. So, the normal rotation goes something like this. Forgive me if I can't think and DPS at the same time. So, we walk up to a target, we'll do Light Attack, we'll do Crippling Grasp, we'll switch to our back bar, we'll apply Blockade of Fire, Twisting Path, and then we'll switch back to our front bar and continue our weave like so. All of which will have to have a light attack between the skills. I didn't show it because I can't think and I can't talk and do things at once. As you can hear by my ability to talk is being fucked over. Anyway, I'll show the rotation or the basics and I won't talk and then I'll explain it. That might be easier. Or something like this. I'll do it a little bit quicker so you get a better idea of how it's supposed to look. So basically, you put down your ground dots, and you put a light attack between activating every new skill. It might sound easy, but keeping track of every dot and every light attack and making sure you get every weave right is quite tricky, especially on a Nightblade using Swallow Soul, because Swallow Soul is a pain in the ass to weave. But I'll give you a full rotation demonstration up until the point it loops. There we go. So the rotation, I may have been saying this too much, but just to be 100% on this, the rotation pretty much goes Crippling Grasp, Light Attack, switch to your back bar, Light Attack, Blockade, Light Attack, Twisting, and then it's Light Attack, Switch bars, then you'll have a Spectral Bow proc, you fire it off, you weave Light Attacks up until your dots are about to expire, recast them, rinse and repeat, dropping in the ults as and when they're up and available. Right, I think that pretty much sums up the build. I'm still very new to making these build videos, so if you have feedback or any ideas on how I can improve these, please feel free to let me know. It's very much appreciated, and thanks for watching.